Hello, hello. Welcome to the Wholeness Within vlog trauma healing podcast. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Laura Schwamm, and I am the founder of the Empath and Sensitive group. And I am also going to be live on the Christian Metaphysical page as well as my YouTube page, my speakers channel. Just want to make sure that I see what's going on. Okay. Well, I wanted to do a vlog on trauma because I wanted to offer something that was easy access to people. Hello. Tell me who you are. By the way, if somebody winds up on my page, a lot of times, unless you have clicked third party, it's not going to tell me who you are. So please tell me who you are, especially if you want me to answer a question. But I wanted to come on and I wanted to talk about healing and healing the effects of trauma. Because a lot of times people don't understand that trauma creates behaviorisms and habits that block them from manifesting, keeping them in a place of disempowerment, keeping a person stuck in a place of lack. What happens then is that it affects our self-esteem, and then it lowers our vibration, and then we form behaviorisms and habits to deal with that. So anxiety and depression, and we're seeing more and more and more imbalances happening within our outer world. And we can't control our outer world, but what thing that we can control is ourself. So learning how to get strong. Hey, I don't want anyone to think that I'm ignoring them. I just want you to know that if you come on, I don't know who you are, because Facebook has a weird thing that they won't do like third party unless you click in your settings. So if you want me to answer a question, you have to tell me who you are. But as I said, I wanted to do, especially for my empath and sensitive group, I wanted to be able to come on to talk about trauma healing. I'm offering a trauma vlog / shadow healing vlog where we talk about trauma healing, and then we do cards. I have over 100 different oracle decks. And then we do a healing modality, because healing the effects of trauma is not just about creating awareness. It's about actually integrating the spiritual lesson. And as highly sensitive people, you have gifts. You're intuitive. And a lot of times the sensitivity, however, affects how we're able to get that insight, that intuitive insight. If we have so much anxiety because of everything that's going around, that's happening in the environment, I mean, we are more susceptible to anxiety, to depression, because everybody else's energy affects us. So you need tools in order to navigate properly. That's why I wanted to have this vlog, and I wanted it to be interactive. So again, if anyone has a question, please feel free to ask me. So talk about the spiritual war that's happening. Spiritual war is happening because they happen in the higher levels of consciousness, which is considered heaven, right? Well, our mind is actually considered part of that realm. We can actually send healing. We can feel energy. Well, anything that happens in the physical realm happens because it has manifested in the spiritual realm first. So I wanted to just pull a card to see what Spirit wants me to talk about. All right, let's see. Okay, intrusive. So again, when we're dealing with shadows due to people that were intrusive, it means boundaries. We may not have good boundaries. So, in order to integrate the energy of intrusive, we have to really become strong within ourselves, be true to ourselves. And that's not just with knowing what we want, but it's actually about being strong within the body. A lot of times, highly sensitive people, we're not strong within our physical body, we're strong within our mind. We happen to be the squeaky wheel, the person that notices any little thing that's out of balance, because we're healers, we're fixers. That's what we're here for. And so when we see everything that's happening right now in the spiritual realm, as I said, is happening because it happened in the spiritual realm first. And the spiritual realm is psychological and emotional. So if you're not liking your life right now, you have to ask yourself, what in my life is intrusive? It could be a job, it could be people at your job, it could be a mother-in-law, it could be, you have to ask yourself, what is in my environment that's intrusive? And ask yourself, what are the habits and the behaviorisms that you get triggered from this energy of intrusive? Because it's a karmic energy intrusive. Whenever we're dealing with somebody that doesn't know their boundaries, it's a sign for us to be able to handle it properly. Most people, not just highly sensitives, but especially highly sensitive people, will either not say anything or they're flip out. There's no middle ground. So it's a very common energy for a highly sensitive person to deal with, because already we don't know the difference between our energy and someone else's energy. Is it my energy? Is it your energy? Whose energy are we feeling? And if we're in a relationship with somebody and you're a highly sensitive person, then it's even worse, because you like that person, so you're all up in their energy, and then you're feeling what they want, and then you want to do it because you want to make them happy. And then what happens is unconsciously you're teaching that person that they don't have to do anything for you because you're so busy worrying about them. So it's, again, a lot of times highly sensitive people wind up in relationships that are karmic. That's why they say, oh, I always wind up with a narcissist. I always wind up with a person that doesn't care about me. So the first thing we need to look at is the energy intrusive? If the energy is intrusive, we need to ask, well, why is the energy intrusive? And what is it triggering within you? So we pull out the wound cards, because the wounds will always tell us that a psychological wound is, again, happens because we go through an experience that makes us look at ourselves as if there's something wrong. If there's a lacking. So it could be, I was in a relationship with someone that I really cared about, and I really thought that they cared about me, but they didn't treat me well. It could be anything that challenges your reality. And your reality could be, well, I always thought that I was safe. Now I don't feel safe. Now I don't feel supported. Now I don't feel cared about. So again, psychic trauma is something that is more personal than obviously a physical trauma, because a lot of people obviously don't know what your traumas are. We have to ask ourselves, okay, that just kind of jumped out. So we want to look and see, look, abandonment and rejection, abandonment and rejection. So a lot of times, if we're dealing with this energy, we have to say, well, why do I give in to the person? Why? What makes it hard? Well, if you're getting triggered, it's because of abandonment issues. Abandonment where maybe you had to speak your truth and the person didn't like what it was and left. And then they blamed you for the way that they acted, which is a complete gaslight. Not uncommon for people that have intrusive energy. People that have intrusive energy, they have a lot of fear inside of them, so they project. So it doesn't mean that it's real. I'm telling you, that may be their level of consciousness. You're getting that person to come into your life and have that karmic theme play out because, again, of fear of abandonment. So, anyone have any questions, please feel free to ask me anything that you want. Otherwise, I'm just going to just keep pulling cards. Just keep pulling cards to see. Okay, next card out, honor, honor, honor. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we honoring? Well, let's pull from the tarot deck, the regular tarot deck, see what's going on in your life. Sometimes what we honor is things that aren't really the best for us, or again, it's outgrown, we've outgrown whatever it is. Four of Swords, time for non-action. So honoring just, again, yourself. This is what I'm saying, which is actually a positive thing. So if you're someone that has gone through energy of, again, someone that's intrusive, the best thing to do is honor yourself. Take time out to honor yourself, especially if you're a highly sensitive person. Because a lot of times people don't do that. 10 of Wands reversed. So again, laying down burdens. So again, which is the exact thing to do, which I love that when tarot backs up regular oracle cards. Like if you're dealing with energy that's intrusive and you're a highly sensitive person and you can't tell the difference between your energy and someone else's energy, what it's saying is, it's like, well, your trigger is that way because of fear of abandonment. And again, maybe a relationship didn't go well and you were blamed for it. So you were made to feel bad, but because you're a highly sensitive person, you felt the other person's energy that wasn't your energy. So what you would have to do is take time out and then lay the burden down, because that's what it says, meaning like, that's not my stuff, that's your stuff. Because like when people are intrusive, what it is they're fearful. And what they're doing is they're trying to give you that fear so that it makes you take action of what they should really be doing, but they're afraid to do it. So they want to be manipulative. And so a lot of times we need to say with highly sensitive people, why does that happen with me with people? What happens with me with people? Because relationships a lot of times can be difficult, and it's all about what it said here was boundaries, like intrusive energy. And that's usually a karmic theme. And we have to say, well, where did the wound originate from? It wasn't within work first. It wasn't within other areas of life. The karmic theme originated a lot of times in a past life, obviously, but then we're born into a certain family that teaches that spiritual lesson. So, and the spiritual lesson might be, again, let's see what you learned. And sometimes that's inherited ancestral karma. Sometimes it's just, your regular collective karma, what other people are doing. You inherited that behavior. And because you inherited that behavior, and the behavior could be a way of thinking, it could be anything, a habit that's positive or a habit that's negative. Usually it's negative. Promethean fire. This could actually be a really good card. Promethean fire is about the passion for life. It's about, but if we don't channel it properly, it becomes harsh energy. It becomes angry energy. Because Promethean fire is when we are able to pull up all our emotions within ourselves and channel it. And it's really supposed to be channeled to purpose. So when we're talking about alchemy, we're talking about transmuting our spiritual wounds, our samskaras. And the only way to transmute those wounds is through passion. However, if we don't transmute them because we keep getting triggered, it's the anger keeps on. It's like when you keep on stubbing your toe in the same place, it hurts. That's what it feels like with the trigger that's not healed over time. So if you're in a relationship with someone that triggers you, and awakens a wound, you're going to react, and not in a very nice way. And so that's a lot of times how bad karma comes about, where a person's like, well, I didn't really want the relationship to end. I just wanted them, but they kept doing X, Y, and Z. When really it wasn't about what they did, it was about what you were supposed to do. Because when you do something different, you shape shift the situation. There's many different realities that play out at one time. So this is why they say you should never get a reading. You should never get a reading, because there's always divine intervention, which is something that we don't see, that God gets involved, the universe gets involved, because it's so utterly unfair that the universe has to like step in. And that really does happen. It just doesn't happen for a long time. It's almost like a person's been dealing with shit for a really long time, and then the universe is like, okay, enough. It's like this person isn't getting it. This person is, there's more damage being done. So what it is we tend to live karmic themes that tend to loop. So it's the same experience, just different relationship, or different job, or different town. Everything is different on the external, but what manifests is the same. And it's a thing that keeps us in disempowerment. So when I'm seeing this, I'm seeing like the fire of it, like the passion. And so sometimes, again, if it's channeled through fear, then that's not good, because again, then our behaviorisms are coming from a place of fear and not from love. And so anytime you take action from fear, you don't manifest anything good. That's why they say never make a decision when you're like, you need to make a decision right now. Someone says you need to literally make a decision right now about something important. You should always say no, because they don't want you to be able to think about it. People that make, decisions that they just react are reacting from fear. And they tend to be looking at only one perception of their situation. And so really, life is about being able to look at things from all different perceptions. When we get stuck in a spiritual block, it means we're stuck in a perception. Again, and that perception keeps us in a place of fear. So we ask why in relationships? Well, disrespect. So we have to say, well, why does that happen? Again, well, if you're a highly sensitive person, again, feeling that person's energy and not your energy, and doing what that person wants all the time, and never having a sense of your own, unconsciously teaches that person. But for many times it's different. Sometimes we're overly nice. If a person doesn't earn their night, like you being nice to them, and they don't like themselves, then they tend to disrespect because they don't like themselves. So it actually has absolutely nothing to do with you. However, the karmic theme is playing out because there's a part of you that doesn't like who you are, but it's unconscious. So we have to say, also dealing with stubbornness and inflexibility. And sometimes that happens too with highly sensitive people. We tend to like things a certain way. Again, we're the squeaky wheel. And the squeaky wheel is very detail oriented. We are the healers. So dealing with people that are stubborn and inflexible too, if we're healed as highly sensitive people, then we don't really have a problem. It's the unhealed versions of highly sensitive people, because a lot of times highly sensitive people and empaths were brought up in environments that weren't really supportive to our sensitivity, and so we just get triggered, and which means we like to make sure that things are going to be in accordance to our comfortability. That's all that it is, because no one else tended to do so. And that may be a karmic pattern that continues to play out. So when we say, let's look and see if anyone's in a relationship with anybody and wants to know, please feel free to ask. If anyone wants to know about their job, if anyone's going through a certain problem right now, please feel free to ask. I have my trauma cards here. Otherwise, I'm going to just keep on channeling about the different spiritual blocks, because it's all about integration. Integrating spiritual wounds turn to spiritual gifts, because again, there's many different perceptions to any situation. But we know when we need healed, because again, there's a trigger that comes up. So we look at the triggers again. Just to be fair, we're going to put all these cards back in, and I'm also going to use another deck. I want to look and see what other deck should I use. I have we have an inner child deck, which I like, and we have I have the other black deck somewhere. I don't know where it went. Well, it doesn't matter. I'll find it after. Where are you? We'll use these. I have a few different. Okay, so we're just going to look and see. Like I said, anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask me anything. Otherwise, I'm going to keep channeling. Okay, what does Spirit want to talk about? For whoever's on that catches this. Perfectionism. So if you're someone that is a perfectionism, we'd say, well, why does that happen? A lot of times there's a sense of feeling inadequate inside of us. That's why. There is no perfect. We shoot for excellence and we find our own unique style. A lot of times we look to be perfect if we don't really have our own style. See, our own unique style is an actual unfoldment process. It's one where you're co-creating with Spirit. It's that you're doing what you love, you're grounded and you're doing what you love, and you're being led by your gut, and you're again giving and receiving of love, which is your free will, but you're being led by your gut and your intuition, and you're meeting different people and seeing different situations, and you are creating yourself. And that is your unique exquisiteness, which is actually perfect according to Spirit, because there is no perfect, only God is perfect. That's why when you look at even things in nature, a leaf isn't perfect. Nothing is perfect. It's the way that we view things, that we can express our own uniqueness. So a lot of times when people don't really know who they are, and that tends to happen because if you weren't able to be like childlike, you weren't allowed to find yourself. You didn't invest in yourself by saying, I was drawn to this hobby, I'm interested in this, and feed those interests. A lot of times the physical world conditions us for who we are. So there's the families that we're born into, the societies that we're born into, that tell us that we need to go to this school, we need to get these type of grades, we need to get this type of job, we need to live this type of life in order to be happy. And it's not that we don't think that we can be happy from that, but from the level of consciousness where we're at, if that's all that we want in that time, it's like what you'll notice is, well, I really wanted it and I manifested it, but once I got it, it wasn't as fulfilling. And the reason is because everybody has their own unique gift of style. Everyone has their own soul's purpose. Everyone has their own reason why they've incarnated here in the physical world. And that's a spiritual purpose. However, the spiritual purpose is something that also is supposed to bring money, supposed to support you. It's supposed to be your connection to God, to the universe, and everyone in the universe, again, through giving and receiving of love. And that is really the closest that you'll come to perfect. When we focus so much on this, it's because there's a deep sense of feeling inadequate. There's a deep sense of feeling like there's something wrong when there really isn't anything wrong. It's just we haven't found our style. We haven't found the people that are going to follow us, the people that resonate with what, but that means you just have to keep doing it and doing it in different ways so that you can, it's a lot of times it's not wrong. We tend to think that it's wrong. We tend to think that it's not happening the way that we envisioned it. So obviously that there's something wrong when that's really not what it is. It's the fact that you have to do it so much that it becomes just natural that you're going with the flow, that it's just spirit working through you. Because when you're doing what you love and you're living your soul's purpose, that's actually, again, a co creation process. And that is perfect. Is when we don't know what it is that we're supposed to be doing, then is the problem. So staying present. So this could be the issue, which is because I don't really know, I tend to not be able to stay present. And highly sensitive people are creative people. They're intuitive people, which means they go up in their mind a lot. They think a lot. So being able to stay present, being in the moment, only in the now do you get divine guidance through gut intuition, inner knowing. When we're up in our head, we're thinking about what did happen, what could happen. So that's a problem, because if something happens in your environment that reminds you of something that was a little traumatic, and again, psychologically, traumatic is the same as physically traumatic to the mind, then what will happen is you will react from a behaviorism instead of really what you want. And that can be a problem. So you might be like, well, I'm a perfectionist. I'm so busy trying to be perfect that I can't stay present because I'm too busy. So what I would say is, again, it's about allowing yourself to find your process. And that is just by doing. And by not putting pressure on yourself. Like I said, you have to listen to your spirit, what you're passionate about, what stirs up your soul, what stirs up your passion. That's really what it is, because the universe's energy is of unconditional love. So when you're doing what you love, and then you're giving and receiving of love through your free will, the universe conspires to make you a magnet for all of that type of energy. And where money doesn't have energy, but any energy except for the energy we give it. But if we're not in a good place because we don't know what our style is, and we're too busy trying to be perfect because we haven't allowed ourselves to have our unique unfoldment process, well, then, like I said, we're trying to put the cart before the horse. And a lot of times our society teaches us that. So it's not uncommon. So we look and see what more envy. So you might be like, well, I either trigger people or I get triggered from people. So people that envy you, it's because they're not grounded. 10 times out of 10, whenever you envy someone, it's because you don't think you can have it. And you might not be able to have what you're going after the way you're going about trying to get it. However, if you can imagine it, you can create it. So what it means is how you're trying to go about it, you're not getting what you want because you're not grounded, you're not present. People don't realize that when you're manifesting, you're manifesting by yourself. It's an actual co-creation process. It's where the universe conspires to bring you what you need. When you think to yourself and you see the wars that are happening in the world and you see what's happening in the outside world, it doesn't make us feel safe, right? And the truth of the matter is, when we don't feel safe and we look at other people, we would get envious, because it's like, well, why do I have to work this hard? And why was I born into this family? And why am I being born during this time? When the truth of the matter is that every single time period had challenges, collective challenges. Some a little bit worse than others, obviously. But the whole spiritual thing is that you're a spiritual being having a human experience. If you want to make yourself strong, if you want to stay safe and feel safe within in your world, you have to make yourself strong. That is the key. And so it's not just about the psychologically being strong, which understanding what your spiritual blocks are, even as something as simple as envy. Like I feel envious. Well, then Spirit says, well, you're not in alignment with me because I live inside of you. So you are the energy of the universe. You are the energy of God because the energy of God is the energy of the universe. It's just energy. It's of a consciousness. The higher the vibration of consciousness is unconditional love. So when we feel envious, obviously that's a negative energy. It's telling us that we can't have. We're really Spirit saying, yeah, maybe the way you're going about it, you can't have, but you can have whatever it is that you want. So we say, okay, well, are there any other blocks that's preventing? And what is the inner child wound? Because it's like, well, where did this envy come from? It just didn't come from nowhere. So we ask, okay, and hopelessness. So again, that's when we tend to be looking at everything from a mental perception, which is what I see is what I know is what I believe, just the facts. And what I see is that I don't have enough. And what I see is based on the experience that I've lived and people that I know and what I could actually rationalize in my mind. So that is void of the spirit part of self. The spirit part of self is the God part of self, which is that supernatural part of yourself that when you do something over and over and over and over and over again, it becomes second nature where you're again letting spirit work through you and you're actually accessing on your intuition because when we're co-creating, we're using whatever's in our environment to create ourselves, but you're using broken structures. Nothing's perfect. Spirit says, I'm going to bring you to those things, people, things, situations that changes your mind and your heart about how you view yourself. That's really how the universe heals you when you're on your spiritual path. If we don't know who we are, a lot of times it's again because we're coming from a place of consciousness of, well, how does everyone else do it? Well, what do I see that we're not using our creative genius? The creative genius is that intuitive part of ourself that only happens when we're present. If we're up in our mind, then you can forget it. We're going to pass by it because if we're up in our mind, we're thinking about what could happen, what did happen, what might happen. And so that's not the way that it works. You want to make yourself strong to be able to go with the flow of life because we have no control over what goes on in our life. So we have to become strong in ourselves. And so, like I said, one way that we would know, obviously, if we feel hopeless, you're not supposed to feel hopeless. So we look at the inner child wounds and we say, well, hope, here, look at this, hope. So this actually, it backs up this hopelessness. So that might be a default mechanism from like, well, when I was in childhood, I watched my parents struggle. I lived experiences of hope, of hopelessness, where I didn't feel hope. Or maybe when you were a child, you had more hope, and that's the energy that you need to integrate for obviously hopelessness. But how would that be done? We ask again and we say, let's see. And that is to, again, spend time by yourself, to spend time to yourself. Because a lot of times, like I said, you don't know whose energy is whose energy, especially if you've been in an environment to tell you how to think, what to do, how to do it, when to do it, why to do it. Like I said, that's also why we would have perfectionists. And there's no such thing as perfect. We shoot for excellence. I want to know again, is anyone on my channel that wants me to answer any questions for them? Lost? Want to know anything? Well, I wanted to talk about my podcast, and I definitely wanted to talk about one healing topic really quick. So a lot of times people have asked me about grounding, protection, and centering on my empath page, especially. And so, really, I always tell people that they should start their day with a daily practice. And the daily practice should incorporate breath work, it should incorporate meditation. But the Silva method is really the best meditation because it helps you get into that delta brain frequency. There's a tapping, it's like that's what it sounds like. So when you get out of listening to that meditation, when you're not listening to it, you can actually recall that sound in your mind to get you back into that level of consciousness. That level of consciousness is ESP consciousness. It connects you to the higher self. The higher self is the God part of self. So when you want to be strong during these times, that is the way to recondition. We are not taught, we're taught to live more from the mental, the logical, the analytical mind. But that mind is negative. That mind also is in charge of your survival. So it's always seeking, what might be a threat in your outside world. And so if you've gone through a lot of experiences that are traumatic, the one thing that you have to definitely do is recondition your nervous system, because your body is your mind's faithful servant. So when we watch war, when we hear about what's going on in the world, and you don't think that you're being influenced because everyone around you is being influenced, because we're all connected. You may not think that you feel other people's energy, even if you're not highly sensitive, but you are. It's again because we are all connected again. So we may say, well, I don't really know how. Well, it affects your behaviorisms. It will affect your habits. These situations, like I said, when we live in imbalanced situations, we form behaviorisms that are in alignment with supporting ourselves in that particular environment. So if you get out of that environment, you have to recondition yourself. So the strongest vehicle that we truly have is ourself. And only in the now do we get divine guidance. So if we're coming from a place of past, and we're trying to be too perfect, and we feel like we don't know where we are, and really that is when I pulled all the cards today and I say, well, what is the topic for all these random cards that I pulled today? And what does it have to do with anything? Again, staying present, loner, perfectionism, hope, hopeless, envy. Like, what does it all have to do with? And there were other cards, the other cards that kept us in like a place of like lack and limitation. It's really, again, it's to get ourselves strong within ourselves, because envy tells us that we can't have. Hopeless means that we can't have it. So everything is telling us that there's a lack. So when we feel stuck, that's really, it's because we're not seeing. So we ask the universe, okay, what energy then am I supposed to incorporate into this situation to change my situation? What would be the healing message? What can I do? Because the universe always says, well, change the perception. And one would be, again, always being true to yourself. A lot of times, like you said, this was all about having the environment tell us who we are, which is why we are envious of other people, because we haven't really created ourselves. Being hopeless, not knowing which direction. It's also, like I said, being a loner, being asked to be a loner, to be quiet, to be able to tap into the intuitive part of yourself, and to be able to stay present long enough to get that divine guidance, but not just get it, but act on it. Because when you're present and you're interactive in life, you're called. You're called to the things that you need because you're already investing. You're making, like like I said, you're creating yourself. And that's by being true to yourself. Being true to yourself. I am true to myself and others. I remove my mask and stop creating illusions. I have confidence in who I am and I reveal the good in me. I do not need to hide or prove anything. I replace shame with the power of love and truth. So really what it is like a lot of times when we don't have hope and when we are envious of other people, it's be on a level we're not liking who we are. And really spirit says, well, we have to get back to a place of liking who we are and grounding who we are and really being true to ourselves, because it's not about being perfect. It's again about displaying your excellence. It's about embodying your excellence and also finding balance. I find balance between each sphere of life. So what you'll notice is a lot of times people tend to not be balanced. Either they overwork and they don't have any other life, or they're in a relationship and they go to work and they have no other life. And that's not life. Life really needs to look like a pizza pie. I say that all the time. Like there's 8 slices, 12 slices in a pie. It means that you need to invest in yourself. And part of investing in yourself is your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health, time for relationships, time for work, time for, so your life needs to be divided. And the reason why is because when you're balanced in yourself, you're not so close up to the picture of not seeing how things are not working out. A lot of times when we are just putting our energy towards something, like just let's just say it's a relationship, wanting that relationship to work out, we're so close up to the picture that we're not getting our own insight. We're letting our ego drive the bus without realizing it, which means we're coming from a place of fear instead of taking a few steps back, taking your mind off of it, the situation, so that you can get the divine guidance from the higher self. When people aren't balanced, they live more from the emotional self. And that's bad if you have wounds. So it's about clearing out the wounds. So you're not perceiving your life through a distorted perception, which is through your wounds, and then creating balance. It doesn't mean that you won't have wounds. Everybody has them. However, they will not be influencing your life because you're still able to recognize when you're being triggered, when you're acting from a trigger, and when you're acting from the higher self. So it's again about getting more grounded in yourself, like it said earlier, and really having the belief. A lot of times, if we don't even believe that there's anything else, like there's no God, there's no universe, there's nothing supporting me, even though everyone knows about The Secret and everyone's heard of Abraham Hicks and all that jazz, people tend to still not believe in themselves because they're like, well, it might happen for other people, but it doesn't happen for me. I hear that a lot. So reconditioning your nervous system, because if you've lived a lot of experiences that made where you saw yourself as a failure, and that could be everything from, hey, in first grade I tried out for the dodgeball team and they didn't pick me, and I to in third grade I failed the spelling bee, to the fifth grade I dropped my mother's vase, to like, I mean, these little random things that happen in our life that the brain holds on to, that forms this perception of ourselves, which isn't real. It's not an accurate perception. So we have to get to the belief of, well, I'm not here by mistake. I'm here by God's grand design. I'm here by the universe's design. I have purpose. and I need to know what that purpose is. I also need to know that I'm supported. No, regardless, that the universe supports me, that I'm actually of the universe. Your energy is, when you were born, was the same as the universe. It was just a consciousness. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was just a flat consciousness of unconditional love, which is actually good, but it's, just in a most relaxed phase. That's why when you look at children, they're not prejudiced. They don't say you're black, you're white. They don't say they're colorblind. They don't know the difference. We're born with this type of clean consciousness. And that's the level that we really want to always be in, to be able to approach life, so that we're open to what the universe is bringing us without viewing it through a distorted perception, which is from an experience that has happened that we didn't learn to integrate or heal. See, the spirit part of self already knows that we've gone through a trauma and that we haven't healed it. That's why we get anxiety. We're like, this is looks familiar. I've gone through this type of situation before. I don't know what I did wrong, however, or I didn't like the experience that manifested. So the spirit remembers to it, and this creates a lot of anxiety. But really, that emotional energy is the gateway to your spiritual healing. It's telling you that there's something that needs to be healed, that there's a shadow that needs to be integrated, and that shadow might have came from the inner child, right? So when we have an inner child wound, and the inner child wound could be anything. It could be anything. So like misunderstood, whereas again, you might be someone that's like, well, I'm very straightforward and people tend to take it the wrong way. I know that that's my issue. Like, so again, misunderstood, where someone might be like, well, you're arrogant. I'm not arrogant. What it is it's that I'm very straight to the point and I don't sway from my point. Where it, again, people are going to view you through their level of consciousness. And if they're wounded, it's going to be distorted. So dealing with that. So if you keep on dealing with people that misunderstand you, what it definitely means is that your presentation, and that might be the words that you use, the approach, is taken wrong. So it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. Well, what it means is, if you want to get along with people, you need to be able to like maneuver that energy a little bit, change it a little bit. If you're dealing with someone that deliberately misunderstands you, it's about being able to articulate it, but then also be able to decipher when the person is deliberately misunderstanding you. But feeling misunderstood tends to create other issues of not feeling good, right? But it makes us a lot of times misunderstood. And you see this card right here, it says magic. So if you were someone that was always misunderstood, you might have been someone that just went completely internal, and someone that is very like mental, they tend to have magic. And why do I say that? Well, it's a lot of thoughts and a lot of emotions are what manifestation energy is. So if we're someone that always felt like we were misunderstood, we tend to be over on the side, trying not to create too much attention. And so people would then perceive you through their level of consciousness, not give you that that credit. And then what would happen is they would misunderstand you, but then see something different. And sometimes that's just to, again, show people how strong that you are. Sometimes being misunderstood is not really a bad thing. Sometimes spirit is using you to show people in your environment that there's many different ways to think and there's many different ways to do things. So as long as you're confident in that. So those were like just a little bit of shadows. And so when we're doing the healing, because each time I meet, I for this vlog, because I want to be on regularly, I want to be able to give at least 30 minutes of spiritual awareness for healing trauma and understanding trauma. And we can understand how trauma is created through understanding the the psychological blocks and also the behaviorisms that come from those blocks and the physical manifestations that come from those blocks. You don't really even need to know what happened to heal trauma now, because there's a lot of different types of meditations, there's a lot of different awareness techniques to see where you're holding tension in your body. However, for when I meet on this vlog, I like to do at least 30 minutes of spiritual awareness and then do card pulls and through different interactive healing, and then also a healing modality, because healing the effects of trauma is not just about doing having awareness, getting a reading. It's about understanding what our behaviorism is, but then reconditioning that behavior and just going back into a situation that was traumatic creates a lot of anxiety. So, dealing with that anxiety so that you could actually integrate and transmute that energy from your spiritual block is the full healing. People tend to only do half their healing, which is, yeah, I understand what happened. I forgave my mother and father a long time ago. I forgave that person that dated me, that screwed me over. I forgave, without integrating the spiritual lesson. And that is really seeing what you did. What was your part? How did you contribute to the undesirable life experience? You might be like, I didn't do anything. If you gave energy to the situation, that could just be enough. You'd be like, how was that enough? Well, when you're dealing with someone that's abusive, if you're sitting there and you continue staying there thinking that they're going to change instead of honoring yourself enough to leave, sometimes it's just giving somebody the benefit of the doubt when you know damn well that they don't really deserve the benefit of the doubt. But you feel bad because maybe they're a family member, maybe they're a friend. There's some weird scenario that makes you feel obligated. Nevertheless, we always have to look and see, how did I contribute to the undesirable life experience? Otherwise, you will continue the same type of karmic cycle. And you don't want to do that. It's not just about understanding, because then we can go through experiences and say, well, I understand, but I still have that energy that when I go through the experience or when I'm even thinking about the experience, it still affects me physically, where I have anxiety or I get into the mind chatter loop where I can't shut it off. I get triggered. Again, that's still telling you that that energy is still with you. You cannot transmute negative energy on your own. You have to transmute it by actually doing something different to counteract that energy. So you're actually seeing a different version of yourself, one that's going to be more empowering, one that's going to, again, be a lot, take you out of that fear energy and put you more into a place of spiritual equilibrium, which is just unbalanced. And sometimes it's just learning how to surrender. But nevertheless, a lot of times we can't actually fully integrate until we do some sort of healing. So within my vlog, we're not just going to do the psychic awareness with the clinical and the spiritual tools and the card readings, but a healing modality, whether that's a different emotional freedom technique, which is tapping, whether it's NLP, to see actually what your perception of the situation was, and so that you can reframe it. There's a lot of different exercises that we'll be doing using my psychic soul healing oracle system, as well as 100 other oracle systems, which makes this program super fun. And there's a 3-month free trial, so I will be on regularly doing card pulls. So anyone that has any questions about anything and that you want to be able to ask me, or about your own healing, we'll be able to do this and be on interactive. And then after the 3 months, it's only $5 a month to be able to do this. And once you are on the subscription plan, then you get to, participate in the giveaways and the prizes and the games that I also have to make it fun, because shadow healing is not fun. Let's face it. It's like it's bringing us back to a place where we felt a lot of pain, where it made us feel like that there was something wrong. So, like I said, we have to be able to integrate those energies. Otherwise, we just keep bringing that energy into new relationships, into new experiences. And that's what keeps us stuck in a karmic loop. And the problem is, if it's with a relationship, you wind up in a karmic contract. And that's when you're like connected to someone that is so toxic that you feel, but you're like dependent on that person, or you feel like you're dependent on that person. And I saw that actually happen with my mother and my father, to the point that my father had cancer 9 times. Was connected to somebody that was mentally sick, because sick goes to sick. You're a magnet of who and what comes into your life. So your mind doesn't know the difference between sick, if you're psychologically sick, or if you're physically sick. But obviously, if you're that physically sick, it's because you have a lot of spiritual blocks. You're not coming from your true sense of self. And that's what happened with my dad. He was a brilliant man, but because he had a hard time making his life work, he didn't like himself. He didn't like what he created, and he tried to suppress those emotions with drinking. And when we do that, it's not like the energy goes away. The energy just becomes suppressed even more. And then over time, it turns into like cancer. It turns into like a physical imbalance. So really, we have the power to heal our body and mind. That's what it's about. It's all about healing the effects of trauma. And you can do that. And you can do it now even more affordably and easier than ever before. Why wait? To me, it's like I've seen the effects of the trauma, and it's a horrible thing for anyone to think that they can't have love, that they can't support themselves, that they can't. We're living in times now that are really spiritual times, and there's a spiritual war on consciousness. And that's where it's, again, everything in our environment is starting to tell us that we're not safe. But Spirit says, one day heaven will be on earth, and that's through the character of man. That's when, again, our consciousness is grounded in a place of unconditional love. So we actually have to become it. And the way that we heal the world is that we heal ourselves. And a lot of times people say it's too far gone. Well, in my religion, it's actually not too far gone. I feel like we're in that war now, and we have an opportunity to be able to change. But we have to take responsibility for ourselves. And you'll know when you heal, when you actually see your life is manifesting the experiences that you want to experience. And you say, well, I don't know how I did it. And really, you'll begin to see you're doing it because you're not doing it alone. You're doing it because the universe is conspiring for you to do it. And the biggest thing that's happening within the world today, the most devastating thing, is the war on on our, spiritual sovereignty. You take our spiritual sovereignty away, you take that supernatural part of ourself away, then you only are able to navigate your life through that mental analytical mind, which is limited. Only the spiritual realm is not limited, and we can actually tap into that energy that is a never ending resource to pull upon to be able to manifest. And that's really why I want to do these vlogs regularly, because you can heal your life, you can change your life. If you have money issues, if you have relationship issues, whatever the problem is, you can change your life. And why not now? Now is the best time to do it while everything's going on in the world, because as we can see, things most likely are going to be very rocky for the next couple of months, at least the next couple of years. Usually you don't see the effects of what goes on in the world until a few years later. So you have time to, again, get strong within yourself. I'm going to leave that there. I want to thank everybody for joining me today for my first vlog. I hope that you enjoyed it and got something out of it. And if you have any questions or want to know anything about anything, please feel free to reach out to me. Ask me your questions. That's what this is going to be here for. All right. I'll talk to you guys all soon. Bye-bye.